Face Off has refused to grow old. People still talk about it as if it came out yesterday. From Nicolas Cage switching faces with John Travolta to explosions that look too real to be fake, this movie has its share of differences, the kind that you hardly see anymore. One thing that many people don't know is that behind all that cool acting and slow-motion drama, things were not smooth at all. The set was complete with arguments, accidents, near walkouts, and moments that could have ended the whole project. Every big scene you see on screen had a story behind it. Some funny, some scary, and some that almost stopped the film from ever being finished. This video takes you right behind the camera, into the messy, crazy, emotional world where Face Off was made. You'll hear about the many fights, the risks, the wild decisions, and the random moments that somehow became so special in the movie. If you thought you already knew this movie, wait till you see what really went down behind the scenes. Strangers turned best friends. Before shooting Face Off, Nicolas Cage and John Travolta were told by the director, John Woo, to spend some time together like real friends, not just co-actors. They spent almost 2 weeks just studying each other. Travolta would sit and watch how Cage talks fast, moves his hands everywhere, and does that smile he's known for. Cage, too, had to learn Travolta's calm and collected style, the way he talks slowly like he's calculating every single word he utters. Travolta later said that it was funny and tiring at the same time because he had never acted like another actor before. John Woo said he wanted them to understand each other deeply so that when they swapped faces, people watching would forget who was who, and it worked. When you watch the movie today, it really feels like the two men exchanged bodies. The idea came from a real accident. The whole story of Face Off didn't just come from thin air. One of the writers, Mike Werb, said he got the idea from a real-life situation that still shocks him to this day. He had one friend who went hang gliding, but something went wrong in the air, and the guy crashed badly and injured his face beyond recognition. Doctors had to remove the man's face and fix it again in surgery. Werb said that it stayed in his head for a long time. He kept wondering, what if medical science reached the point where someone could wear another person's face? That thought refused to leave him. He started playing with the idea until it formed into a complete story, and that's how Face Off was born. So even though the movie looks wild and unreal, the seed of it came from something that really happened. The ridiculous chin line was Travolta's own idea. There's a part in Face Off where Cage, acting as Castor in Travolta's body, looks in the mirror and complains about his ridiculous chin. That line wasn't written in the script at all. Travolta actually added it himself. He said he felt it made sense because his real chin had been joked about for years, and his character, Castor Troy, was too vain to have kept quiet about it. So he just threw the line in on set, and everyone laughed hard, including Cage. John Woo loved it so much that he left it in the movie. That small, funny moment gave the scene more life and showed how deeply both actors were living in each other's skin. It's one of those unscripted lines that ended up becoming one of the most memorable lines in the film. Travolta later said that's one of his favorite moments because it was him teasing himself while still staying in character. The over-the-rainbow moment was John Woo's emotional balance. That slow scene where the little boy is listening to "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" while bullets are flying everywhere wasn't in the script at all. John Woo added it at the last minute because he said he didn't want the movie to feel like just gunshots and explosions. He wanted something soft to touch the heart inside while all the weird things were going on. He said that the boy represented innocence in a world full of violence. Some people at the studio didn't like the idea at first, but when Woo showed them what it looked like, they all kept quiet. That's one of the reasons Woo is known for mixing beauty with chaos in all his films. They built life-size doubles that looked too real. For the surgery scenes where the doctors were removing and attaching the faces, they didn't use computer graphics. The special effects team actually made full-size human models of both Cage and Travolta. The dummies were made with latex skin and tiny motors that made them breathe, blink, and twitch like real people. Even the chest moved as if someone were inhaling air. It was so real that Cage said when he first saw his dummy lying on the table, he felt somehow scared. He said it looked like he was staring at his dead self. John Woo said he wanted it to look so real that people would forget it's fake, and it worked. Those practical effects still look fresh today, even after many years. That plane and hangar crash was 100% real. That part at the beginning of the movie, where the plane crashes into the hangar, actually happened. They crashed a real jet for that scene. The crew built a full hangar set and used several cameras to capture the crash from many angles at once. They only had one chance to get it right, so everyone on set was tense. The explosion was real, the fire was real, and some of the stunt guys even said they could feel the heat from far away. John Woo didn't want fake effects. He wanted everything to look raw and dangerous. That whole setup took weeks to plan and just seconds to destroy, but the shot came out perfect. The tragic carousel scene was moved to the beginning. Initially, the part where Castor shoots Archer's son on the carousel wasn't at the start. It was supposed to come in the middle of the movie, but when John Woo read the final script, he felt it would hit harder if the audience saw that pain from the beginning. He wanted people to understand Archer's anger and obsession right away, so he told the writers to move it to the start. That decision changed everything in the story, making it more emotional. Right from the first few minutes, you would already feel sorry for Archer, and that's one of the smartest changes that they made, and even the studio later agreed that it made the film more powerful. The doves weren't in the script at all. That part in the church where doves just start flying around like something holy is happening, while bullets are flying everywhere, was also never written in the script at all. John Woo just got that idea right there on set, because he has this soft spot for birds, especially doves. He said to him, "The dove stands for peace, love, and purity in the middle of madness, so even though people were shooting and dying, he wanted something to remind people that not everything in the world is ugly." But the real problem was that those birds refused to cooperate. The bird guys brought about 20 of them, and almost every time one bird would either fly too early or just perch on someone's head. At one point, one dove even flew straight into the camera lens, and everybody started shouting. They had to reshoot the same scene over and over for almost 3 days. Travolta said he was tired of smelling gunpowder and bird poop together, but John Woo refused to stop until he got the slow motion he wanted. At the end of the day, that same annoying scene became the most memorable part of the whole film. Almost everybody who talks about Face Off always remembers those doves. Woo even laughed later that those birds gave him a headache, but also gave him history. The movie was supposed to be sci-fi. The writers at first wanted to set everything in the future, maybe 50 years ahead, with flying cars and high-tech face-swap machines that could change people's DNA and all that. But when John Woo came in, he said they should calm down and bring it to this world, making it feel real. He wanted people to sit in the cinema and actually feel like this could happen somewhere in a secret government lab. So they had to scrap all the futuristic sets they had planned. They reduced the technology, made the machines look like something that could exist now, and turned the whole story from science fiction to an emotional crime thriller. That small change changed everything because once it became more realistic, people could relate better. It wasn't just about swapping faces again. It became about identity, pain, family, and how far a man will go to catch his enemy. Even the actors said they preferred it that way because it made it easier to act like real humans rather than robotic future soldiers. In the end, it was John Woo's decision to keep it simple that gave the movie its magic. Nicolas Cage took getting into character too seriously. Nicolas Cage is so serious about acting to the extent that he would carry a script like a Bible and just start living inside it. Before they even started shooting, he had already begun acting strangely on set. The man said he didn't want to play Castor Troy like any regular bad guy. He wanted to make him feel dangerous but still sweet, like someone who can kill you while smiling. He was walking around the set, talking to himself, sometimes laughing randomly, other times standing and staring at the wall. People thought something was wrong with him. Travolta said that once, he just saw Cage facing a mirror, whispering lines over and over again, like a prayer. When he asked him what was going on, Cage said, "I'm finding Troy." Even John Woo was shocked, but he liked it. He said that madness was precisely what the movie needed. Some crew members said Cage would suddenly break into laughter after a scene, then start crying the next minute. They just left him alone because whatever he was doing was clearly working. That's why even after all these years, nobody can play Castor Troy like him. Wu later said Cage brought the spirit of a man that was both angel and demon. That surgery scene almost made everyone throw up. That face swap surgery scene that everybody still nearly made the whole crew throw up that day. It looked too real because they didn't just use some cheap makeup, they used real prosthetic skin mixed with glue and jelly-like material to make it look like real flesh. The smell was horrible. The studio lights made everything hot, and the fake flesh began to melt. People inside that room were holding their noses, and some even had to walk out. Nicolas Cage said he nearly threw up because the glue was so thick that it made breathing hard. And John Woo, instead of pitying them, was shouting, "More sweat, more pain, that's real." They even had 2 real surgeons on set to guide them on how the face should be peeled, how the laser should sound, and where to cut. Woo said he wanted people to sit at home and assume, and he got exactly that. That scene made plenty of people cover their eyes when watching it in the cinema. Even years later, doctors were talking about how realistic it looked. That's how detailed they went just to make sure it didn't look like a joke. Travolta's son helped him nail the role. John Travolta said something during an interview that people don't even know. He told his minor son that he was the one who actually helped him understand how to act like Nicolas Cage. When he first got the script, he didn't even know how to start acting like another actor pretending to be him. So one day his son started copying him at home, the way he talked and moved his face, and Travolta suddenly realized that's exactly what he needed to do. Watch and copy Cage the same way. So they started playing around with it in the house. His son would tell him, "No, Daddy, Nicolas Cage moves his hand like this," or "He opens his eyes like this," and they would laugh about it. He said those small practice moments at home were what gave him the confidence to switch personalities so well on screen. By the time he got to set, he was already doing Cage's laugh and walking perfectly. Even Nicolas Cage himself was shocked, saying, "Man, you really studied me." Travolta said he felt proud that his son unknowingly coached him into one of his most prominent movie roles ever. That's why whenever people talk about Face Off, he always remembers that his son was the secret coach behind his perfect imitation. The real reason John Woo almost quit the movie. This whole thing almost scattered before they even started shooting. The studio guys and John Woo were not getting along at all. From the moment they gave him the script, Woo already had something profound in his head. He didn't want to make just another action film with guns and explosions flying everywhere. He wanted it to have real emotion, something people could actually feel. He wanted pain, drama, and heart inside all that noise. But the Hollywood people didn't like that idea at all. They wanted straight action, fast scenes, plenty of fire, and no time for feelings. Woo didn't agree to it at all. He said that's not the kind of movie he makes. He likes slow motion, flying birds, dramatic looks, and people showing emotion even in the middle of a shootout. That's when the problem started. Woo told them one day, "I'm not filming bullets, I'm filming emotions," but the studio didn't care. They just wanted something that would sell quickly. The argument kept going until one night, Woo got so upset he packed his bags and said he was done. His assistant begged him to stay, but he didn't listen. Then John Travolta went to his hotel, sat him down and said, "John, nobody else can do this movie like you. You were made for it." The next morning, Woo came back to set like nothing happened, smiling and saying, "Let's make art." Funny enough, the same movie he almost quit became the one that gave him the most enormous respect in Hollywood. Later, he said if he had walked away that day, he would have regretted it forever. That crazy boat scene cost a fortune and almost killed someone. The last part of Face Off might make you think it was just another typical action scene because of how smooth it looks, but it almost cost them everything: money, time, and even lives. At first, it was meant to be a typical car chase, quick and straightforward, but John Woo said he wanted something different, something people had never seen before. He said, "Everyone has done car chases. Let's do boats." The producers almost lost their minds. Boats were expensive, risky, and complicated to control, especially on real water. But Woo didn't care. So they built real boats from scratch, Everything you see in that scene, the fire, the splashing, the crashes, was real. The stunt guys said it was the most challenging job that they had ever done. The water was rough, the sun was hot, and they had to shoot the same crash more than 10 times. At one point, one of the stunt doubles almost drowned. He was supposed to jump off before the impact, but the boat hit too hard and threw him off balance. The whole set went silent. People ran, thinking the guy was gone. Then after a few seconds, he came up coughing and shaking. Wu just looked at him and asked calmly, "Are you okay?" The guy nodded and Wu clapped and said, "Good, let's do it again." Everyone laughed, but deep down, they knew he meant it. That's how serious he was about perfection. They spent more than 2 weeks shooting that scene, and the budget almost doubled as a result. But when they finally watched it, with all the explosions and the two of them fighting like mad brothers on fire, everyone knew it was worth it. Even the producers who had complained couldn't stop smiling. Travolta said that was the most dangerous shot of his career, but every bit of sweat paid off. To this day, that boat chase is still considered one of the best filmed without a single computer trick. Nicolas Cage wanted to quit. After the first scene, when he started Face Off, he didn't even know it was going to get that dark. The first few days he was shooting, especially that scene in the airport with the choir and bombs, he said it messed up his spirit. He told John Woo straight up that he didn't want to do it again. He said, "I can't be this evil man for 3 months. It's too dark." He wasn't pretending at all. It really disturbed him. He even called his agent, saying he wanted to quit before things got worse. John Woo then called him into his office and told him something that changed everything. Woo said, "Don't act evil. Act the man's reason for being evil." He told him that Castor Troy was not just a mad criminal. He was someone who had been broken inside and decided to enjoy the chaos. That talk shifted something in Cage's head. From that day, he started to enjoy the character. He found a way to channel all that darkness into something artistic. He started doing crazy improvisations that weren't in the script, licking the priest's face, dancing in the church, laughing at random moments. Wu loved it. He said Cage gave the movie a kind of madness that nobody could copy. The funny thing is, the same man who wanted to quit at the start ended up being the movie's soul. Later, Cage said, "I almost walked away, but I'm glad I didn't, because that film changed me as an actor forever." The cast didn't trust the face swap idea at first. When people first heard the story of two men swapping faces, most thought it was rubbish. Even the actors themselves did not believe it at first. Travolta said when he first read the script he thought it was a comedy. He said, "You're telling me I'll act like Nicolas Cage while he's acting like me? That's mad." Cage too was confused. He said the whole idea sounded like something that could easily turn to nonsense if not done right. The supporting cast was laughing, saying it would confuse viewers. Some of them even said they only joined because of Woo's name. But John Woo kept saying, "Trust me, this will work." To make sure they didn't mess up, Woo made Travolta and Cage spend 2 full weeks studying each other before filming started. They watched old interviews, old movies, recorded each other's voices, and even copied each other's walking steps. Travolta said by the time they started shooting, he already knew how Cage blinks, how he smiles, how he shouts. Cage said he even practiced Travolta's hand movements in front of the mirror at night. That's why when you watch the movie, you'll believe they actually swapped souls. Their mannerisms matched perfectly. At the end, everyone who had doubted the idea had to admit it worked better than they had imagined. Even the studio boss said, "I didn't believe it at first, but this is genius." The mirror scene was pure improvisation. That mirror scene, where both of them finally face each other and aim their guns at themselves, is easily one of the most powerful in the movie. But the funny thing is, that whole idea came out of nowhere. They were not supposed to use a mirror at all. The script just said, both men meet and aim at each other. But on the day of shooting, John Woo looked around and saw a big mirror near the wall. He paused for a while and said, "Wait, let's use that." He told Cage and Travolta to stand in front of it so that when they point the gun, they're not just aiming at their enemy, they're staring at their own reflection. When they rehearsed it, everybody went quiet. It suddenly deepened, as if both men were fighting their own inner selves. Woo loved that energy. They shot it quietly, no background noise, no shouting, just the two of them breathing heavily. Travolta said that the scene almost made him tear up because he suddenly saw the story differently. Two men who hate each other, but also share the same pain. They trained their voices to sound like each other. When people talk about Face Off, they consistently mention how Nicolas Cage and John Travolta acted like each other after the face swap. But what many don't know is that they didn't just act it, they practiced for it, like it was school. John Woo made them take voice training so they could sound exactly alike. They watched each other's old movies and interviews. Travolta practiced Cage's fast talking and sudden bursts of emotion, while Cage practiced Travolta's calm, deep voice and slow delivery. They even recorded themselves reading the same lines and played them back to see how close they were. The voice coach said both of them were so serious about it that sometimes they forgot who was supposed to be who. Even the sound team said they would get confused when editing because the voices sounded so alike. Travolta said that sometimes he would say a line and later realize it sounded exactly like what Cage would have said. And that's precisely what made the movie feel real. The swap didn't just happen on the face, it occurred in the voice, the attitude, and even the rhythm of speech. By the end of the shoot, both actors said they had started thinking and talking alike without even trying. The movie almost had different main actors. Before Nicolas Cage and John Travolta came on board, Face Off was supposed to star Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. The producers first wrote the script with them in mind because they were the biggest action stars at that time. They wanted something really huge that would draw attention immediately. But when they read the story about two men swapping faces and lives, both Stallone and Arnold said no. They didn't like the idea because it was too strange and confusing. They preferred straight action, not something emotional and psychological. After that, the studio tried Michael Douglas. He liked the script, but instead of acting in it, he said that he would rather produce it. Then, much later, someone suggested Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. At first, people thought it wouldn't work because both of them were so different. Cage was wild and unpredictable, while Travolta was calm and smooth. But that difference became the secret that made the movie powerful. The two opposites balanced each other perfectly. Woo said that the moment he saw them act together, he knew that this was the right match. If Stallone and Arnold had done it, it probably would have just been another loud, empty action film. But with Cage and Travolta, it became emotional and unforgettable. John Travolta nearly lost his voice, filming those shouting scenes. A lot of people don't know that John Travolta almost lost his voice halfway through filming Face Off. He had so many scenes where he had to shout, cry, and argue non-stop that his throat gave up at some point. Those intense confrontations, especially the ones between him and Cage, were shot back to back, and Woo wanted them to scream at each other for real, not fake it. Travolta said it was so bad that he couldn't even talk after one of the takes. His voice cracked so much that they had to pause filming for 2 days. The funny part is, Woo thought his raspy voice actually made his performance better, so when Travolta came back, Woo told him to keep it that way. He said it made the character sound more broken and real. Travolta said later that Face Off was one of the few movies where he gave everything, voice and all, and he never regretted it because it was worth every strain. The prison scene almost got the film banned. That whole prison part, where Cage was stuck in that strange futuristic jail with those heavy magnetic boots, almost didn't make it into the movie at all. The studio people felt it was too dark and violent, and they were also worried it would make people uncomfortable. Those boots weren't props that looked heavy, they were actually heavy for real. Some of the extras said their legs were sore and bruised from wearing them all day. Cage complained that the costume felt like being locked in an oven and everyone was sweating because the place was so hot. But John Woo refused to remove that scene. He said that it showed what it feels like to be trapped in someone else's skin, unable to move or be yourself. Everything you saw there was real, from the floor sensors to the metal platforms. You can actually see the tiredness on their faces because they were genuinely very exhausted. When the movie finally came out, that same scene the studio wanted to delete ended up being one of the most talked about parts. Critics called it one of the best prison escapes ever shot, and Woo just smiled because he knew it was worth all the stress. The surgery scene looked too real. That surgery scene where they were swapping faces looked so real that even the crew members couldn't stand it. Some people on set had to walk out because it made their stomachs turn. The makeup team worked like crazy to make everything look real, right from the fake skin to the blood to the sound of the tools cutting through flesh. Woo didn't want to hide anything or cut away like most directors do. He said he wanted people to feel what was happening and believe it. During one take, a camera guy nearly fainted, and another person said he couldn't eat for 2 days after seeing it. Cage and Travolta said it was one of the most brutal scenes they had ever done because they had to lie still for hours while people worked around them. The lighting, the background sound, and the close-up details made it too real for comfort. Some countries even cut that scene out of the movie when it came out because it was too disturbing, but Woo stood by it, saying that the whole point of the scene wasn't just about switching faces, it was about losing your identity entirely. Face Off was rarely made at all. The biggest secret is that Face Off almost didn't happen. The script had been sitting around for years before anyone took it seriously. At first it was supposed to be a sci-fi film set in the future, but no studio wanted to risk it. Directors kept turning it down until John Woo came to America. He read it and said, "This story is crazy, but it's beautiful." The studio didn't trust him at first because he was new to Hollywood, but Travolta fought for him. Cage came on board next, and everything started moving again. Even with all that, the production still almost collapsed twice because of budget fights and creative disagreements, but Woo refused to let it die. He said it was the kind of story he had waited his whole life to tell, two men losing their faces and finding their souls, and somehow, against every odd, they finished it. The hospital scene was total chaos behind the camera. That hospital scene near the end of the movie where everything was falling apart was absolute chaos behind the scenes. On the screen it looked clean and intense, the set was a complete mess. They filmed it inside an old hospital that had been shut down for so many years. The place still smelled like disinfectant and rust, and the air felt heavy and stale. Some of the lights kept switching on and off, and the floor was so slippery that crew members kept falling while running cables. Nicolas Cage said there was a moment when he almost tripped while he was running with a gun because wires were scattered everywhere. Travolta joked that the hospital was haunted because they were shooting late at night and strange sounds kept echoing through the empty hallways. Then came the explosion scene, and that nearly turned everything upside down. One of the old fire alarms, which wasn't even supposed to work, suddenly started blaring, and everyone panicked, shouting directions and trying to keep control, while the crew quickly rushed to stop the noise. The funny thing is, one of the nurses in that scene was an actual nurse who had worked at that same hospital before it closed. She said it felt somehow to walk those halls again, only this time surrounded by cameras and fake blood. By the time they had wrapped up, everyone was drenched in sweat and completely exhausted. But when they watched the playback later, all the chaos somehow made the scene look more real. They rewrote the ending at the last minute. The ending of Face Off wasn't what they originally planned. The first version of the script ended much darker, with Sean Archer losing his family even after regaining his face. But Woo said that it felt too sad, like there was no hope left after all the pain. He gathered the writers and said, "We need to show that even broken people can find peace again." So they rewrote the final scenes just a few days before shooting them. Travolta said that it gave him goosebumps because it was the first time in the whole story that his character finally breathed again. In this story, a few lines changed the entire mood of the film, and it's hilarious. If they had kept the old ending, Face Off might not have been remembered as the emotional masterpiece that it became. What do you think about this video? Kindly share your thoughts in the comments. Endeavor to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.